Delegates. Delegates are very interesting. They allow us to work with events quite nicely. They're a nice feature of working with C# in the .NET world and other programming languages. They're another example of yet another reference type. We know about reference types. Delegates allow you to reference a method, like C function pointers or C++ function pointers. Well, these work like if you're working with a database API in C, for example, you're working with delegates when you want to use a handler to actually implement some functionality. And this is going to be at runtime. You gain the flexibility to implement runtime functionality, a flexible, reusable strategy that allows you to implement different functionality. And this would be the signature. Public or private, whatever your access modifier is, delegate is the keyword, meaning we're creating a delegate, not a class or an enum or a structure or something like that. Void, this is a delegate that is wanting to have a particular signature. So void is not returning anything from a method. Boolean would return a Boolean, for example. This is just the name of the delegate. Don't worry about it. It can be whatever you want it to be. And the methods that you call, they can be anything you want them to be too. You can have those names and they can be just about anything you want. Well, here's our parameter list, string. So this is a delegate that needs to have a signature, and the methods that need to use this delegate need to have this signature: void, no return, and then a string. You can have multiples in the parameter list as well. So the delegate is like, think in terms of the United Nations, the UN. A delegate is a representative from a country working something out between people, between groups. It's delegating. Well, we're delegating this, and that's the same functionality, the same mentality. You have method signatures that you're going to use, and they need to match the signature, and then the delegate can serve as that method. It can act like that method. Okay, so we're going to derive both static and instance methods in our examples. We'll take a look at both. We know about both now, so we'll take a look at both. Alright, so delegate example here, quick example. The blue here, public static bool, and this is our method name. This is just a method, and it has a string parameter passed in. So you can have all your functionality here. ... means whatever you implement it, whatever is the block of code. Well, we need to look for, and you see static here. So we'll have static, and we'll have the instance. But we have a Boolean return type and a string parameter list. Well, we need to look down here. There we go. Public delegate Boolean, delegate to string. This has the same signature, Boolean and string. Delegate to name doesn't matter. Delegate is telling us this is a delegate. Well, we could use this one. We can't use this because it has void instead of Boolean. They don't match the signatures. You'll get a compile time error. Now, down below in our main, all we're doing is working with that delegate to. You pass the method call. That's why it's in red. You're just passing the method call. Don't let that confuse you at all. That's what you do. You'll see this when you start working with Windows Forms, that when you're working with events, it's the same thing after the same thing after the same thing after the same thing when you're working with events and you're working with a delegate. So when you get to that point, delegates are easy because you're using it all the time. But when you need to use them in a separate case, when you need to write your own delegates, well, then it becomes a tiny bit confusing. And the name delegate sounds strange, doesn't it? Doesn't make sense to me. Class, enum, struct, those make sense. Delegate sounds different. And then you just use it. Delegate here, del, and then you pass the string for that method. So you're using this as if this were that actual method that you're actually delegating for. And it just manages that in between for you. Let's look at the simple example in Visual Studio. It's a simple delegate example within delegates and events. You can see there we go. Static public bool and then print me. That's the name of the method. String, so we need to find a Boolean and a string. Boolean return type, string parameter list. And of course you could have multiples there if you wanted to. Not a problem. And you can see we're just returning something because we have a return type, and then console.writeLine, whatever the implementation is, whatever is the method functionality there. Alright, so since we have a Boolean and then string here, we have an integer too, nothing matches, so we can't use this with a delegate unless we add another delegate or change a delegate. It needs to match, so we don't do that. We take care of that. Alright, so now we need to find a Boolean and a string. Well, there you go. Return a bool from string. This is the delegate that we can use. We can't use the other two. These both are dealing with void. Can't use those unless we change the return type of our print me here and then comment out the return true because it won't return anything. All right, there we go. Main. And incidentally, when you work with void, you can return without passing a type there, and that will just return from the function, return from the method. You might have additional code there you want to return within an if statement, then you're just returning. So that's the difference. Here we're specifying a type, so that's needed for the Boolean. All right, there we go. We're moving down, and then we see we're just using that particular delegate name there. That's our delegate, just like we do with a class, equals new, same delegate name, and then we're passing the method that we want to use there. You can have multiple methods, as many as you want. You can pass them all to that delegate as long as they have the same signature. Then you can just access that delegate like you would the member. It's just that method name there. Instead of using the method name, you're using the delegate. You'll see when we work with events, it comes in handy quite a lot, and then you'll get the hang of it, and you'll be able to do some of your own things. If you want to dump out that method information to find out what this delegate represents, well, del.method. And there are other ways, other things you can do as well. As always, del dot, and then you find all the additional functionality. By no means is this an advanced lesson on delegates, but it's making sense out of delegates in a very quick and easy way. You can do a lot of things with delegates. We build, we see hello, it just did that. Console.WriteLine, and then you see the signature that it's representing. Boolean, print me, system.string. That's the delegate method. That's the dumping of the method name. Very easy to work like that. So we'll see additional functionality as we move forward. Delegates are great.